The flaming wreckage of the time machine reflects in the eyes of future Trunks, and as Gohan, Bulma, Raditz, and present Trunks approach the long-haired man, it is plain to see from his tortured expression that a piece of him is burning with it. Tenderly, Raditz lays a hand on his future son's shoulder, promising they'll find a way through this, while in a more pragmatic tone, Bulma states that she's already figured out how. She's gonna reverse engineer the time machine from the parts here. Sighing, future Trunks thanks his mother, but says that's easier said than done, as it took him and future Bulma years to perfect the time machine, and they don't have that long with the two villains running wild in his timeline. However, instead of sharing her son's gloomy outlook, Bulma retorts that it took them years in an apocalyptic world while they were constantly on the run from androids. Here she has plentiful resources and the advantage of not needing to build the machine from scratch, so it should take her far less time. Though, and here her sunny optimism does falter a little, being replaced by a consoling tone, it will still take some time, so for the moment, future Trunks will have to sit tight. This clearly upsets the future dweller, who scowls, though he is at least emotionally intelligent enough not to lash out. Wanting to help too, Gohan offers to let Trunks stay at the lookout with him, saying they've got a lot of catching up to do, but eagerly, present Trunks cuts him off, saying his future counterpart should stay with them, since he wants to get to know the badass swordsman his dad's always talking about. This makes future Trunks blush, as he says that he'd hate to be an imposition, but with a smile back on her face, Bulma says she insists, saying she'll even have a capsule house made up for him, so he can stay for as long as he likes. All this hospitality clearly flusters Trunks, though it does at least get his mind off the precarious position his own world is in, and seeing this, his present version begins pulling him inside, urging him to explain how he beat Boo, since in this timeline it took the whole team to take that monster down. Wanting to hear this as well, Gohan, Raditz, Nappa, Tien, and Krillin follow behind the two Trunkses, while Bulma departs to her lab, ordering two workers to bring the debris. When they're all inside, future Trunks recounts the events of his battle with Boo, explaining how he and 16 were recruited by his timeline's Shin, Kibito, and Elder Kai. At this point, Nappa interjects, asking if by Elder Kai, Trunks means the Grand Supreme Kai, giving the young man a brief descriptor of the rotund and jolly Kai. However, Trunks shakes his head, saying that maybe he just lost a lot of weight, but the person he met wasn't like what Nappa described at all. He was old, shriveled, and cranky, having apparently spent eons trapped in the Z-Sword before Goku and Gohan broke it during their training. At this statement, Gohan goggles, admitting that he doesn't know what's wilder, that there's a Kai living in the Z-Sword, or that he and his dad stayed on the sacred world of the Kais for that long. Smiling, future Trunks nods that he actually got to meet the future father and son, and even trained with them for a while after Elder Kai granted him a new power-up. Now it is Raditz's turn to interrupt, eagerly asking what kind of new power-up, but before his future son can answer, the younger Trunks cuts in, telling everyone to knock it off with the questions, since he wants to hear the whole story. This makes everyone's sweat drop, most of all future Trunks, who can't help but notice the stark difference in demeanor between himself and his past counterpart. Nonetheless, he elaborates that he and 16 trained for a while in the sacred world, while Shin and Kibito tracked down Babidi and his minions, at which point the four of them departed to stop the ancient evil from being awoken. Unfortunately, Goku and Gohan couldn't go with them, as with fortune teller Baba did at the hands of the androids, no one was around to enact their one-day passes. At the wizard's spaceship, Trunks, Kibito, and 16 did battle with Babidi's champions, Dabura, Pui Pui, and Yakon, and though the villains were no match for their might, when Trunks demonstrated his new power against Dabura, the ki output was enough to awaken Majin Buu. Nobly, Kibito sacrificed his life in an attempt to destroy Buu, but when this failed, it fell to Trunks and 16 to end the nightmare with a combined double Sunday, though sadly not before Shin was killed by Buu. Since then he's done his best to honor his fallen comrades by maintaining order and watching over the world. However, all hope of a peaceful world died when Goku Black turned up. Worriedly, Gohan ponders whether perhaps he and Gohan Black could be the future versions of himself and his dad that Trunks met during his training for Buu, but Trunks shakes his head, saying that's impossible, since the Gohan he met was still the same age as when he died against Frieza, and as they all saw, Gohan Black is comparable in age to present Gohan. Not to mention he has the scars in his arms that Gohan got during the Cell games, which never happened in his timeline. This does relieve Gohan somewhat, not wanting to believe any version of himself or his dad could become evil, but this still means the identity of the future invaders remains a mystery. Setting his jaw, the Guardian promises that while Bulma works on the time machine, he'll do some digging to see if he can find any clues, and considering how Goku Black called himself God, his first port of call will be Shin. The next morning, Gohan returns to the sacred world of the Kais for the second time in as many days, though this time with Krillin by his side rather than Trunks. Having been disturbed by the idea of a villain wearing his fallen best friend's face, Krillin had volunteered to assist Gohan in his investigation, with the young hybrid being happy to accept the help. However, when the pair reach Shin's world, they are not met by the kindly deity, but rather a testy Kibito. Adopting a non-confrontational tone, Gohan asks if he can see the Supreme Kai, but this is promptly rebuffed, with a pink-skinned god huffing that Lord Shin is busy. A moment later, Kibito thinks better of his rudeness and apologizes, explaining that the Supreme Kai and Goku were called to Lord Zeno's palace to discuss yesterday's sparring match. At these last three words, Kibito's calm begins to crack, with an undertone of fretfulness making its way into his speech, a fact not made any easier by Krillin, who asks who Lord Zeno is. Pacing now, Kibito tells the human that Lord Zeno is the ruler of all reality with the power to erase whole universes in the blink of an eye. This rightfully scares Krillin, but Kibito isn't done, saying that if his suspicions are correct, his master and Goku have been summoned so they can be punished for allowing a mortal to cross universes, since why else would the Omni King call for them? Nodding gravely, Gohan promises to provide any help he can, but with a heavy sigh, Kibito states that he very much doubts Gohan can do anything. He then asks why the young man and his friend wanted to see Lord Shin, and when Gohan finishes explaining, Kibito's jaw hangs slack and his eyes look like they're about to pop out of his head. With a furious roar, he curses that of course these mortals would commit the forbidden act of time travel right when Lord Zeno's eye will already be upon them. But in a placating tone, Gohan tells the pink-skinned Kai not to worry, since this isn't Trunks' first time coming here, and nothing bad happened. Well, except for the whole thing with Cell, but they sorted that out pretty quickly. By now, all the veins in Kibito's forehead are pulsing, and in a voice that suggests he is only holding onto his sanity by a very tenuous sliver, he urges Gohan to get rid of future Trunks as soon as he can, since if by some miracle the Omni King does not erase them for yesterday's transgression, he certainly will if he learns they are harboring a time traveler. Having spent a year training with Kibito, during which time the Kai didn't like him or his father very much, Gohan is used to sensing frustration in Kibito's energy, but something about this outburst troubles the young half-Saiyan, though he can't put his finger on why. However, now is hardly the time to investigate it, as he fears that if he adds to Kibito's stress any further, he might keel over and die, and with him already being dead, having given up his life to revive Gohan, this would be disastrous. And so it is that Gohan and Krillin bid farewell to the attendant, having no further business on the sacred world, with the two people they wish to speak to being absent. When they're alone, Krillin asks if they can head to Beerus' world next, since he's the other god they know, but to his surprise, Gohan says no, stating that he's still not sure whether they can trust the Destroyer God. In all honesty, part of him suspects that Gohan Black might actually be Beerus, since he definitely recognized the imposter's key, and Black's actions certainly fall within Beerus' modus operandi. After all, it's all there in the name, God of Destruction. Shuddering at the thought, Krillin asks if Gohan knows how Beerus would be able to impersonate him, but here the young Guardian admits that he doesn't have a clue, but that's something they'll need to figure out if they're to stand any chance of defeating him. Meanwhile, back at Capsule Corp, the two Trunkses have spent a very enjoyable morning together, playing Capsule Kart and eating ice cream. Though no fan of that infernal game, especially when the boys decide to team up against him, Raditz does join them, and it does his synthetic heart good to see these versions of his son getting along like long-lost brothers. However, it doesn't mean he's about to let them lounge around like a pair of slugs all day, and so after a sumptuous lunch courtesy of Capsule Corp's kitchen staff, he tells the boys that if they're going to be battling evil versions of Goku and Gohan, it's time they get down to training, since he has no intention of allowing himself or his sons to be shown up by Kakarot and his boy. This is all said in good humor, but all the same, future Trunks eagerly agrees to test himself against his father, while Teen Trunks grins that he's gonna whoop both their butts. Heading into the gravity room, the three Saiyans take fighting stances, with the younger Trunks making the first move, as he lunges at his future self, wanting to get a feel for his strength. Foolishly, future Trunks assumes that since this version of him is similar in age to when he came back to fight the androids, he will be of similar power. However, this mistake earns him a fist to the face, as present Trunks far exceeds that estimate, having fought a god and trained with an angel. A little worried, Teen Trunks asks his dad if he went overboard, but future Trunks grins that it's fine. In fact, he's glad to see how strong the kid is, since it means he doesn't have to hold back as much. He then flares his aura and lays down a volley of punches, which force the younger Trunks onto the defensive, but before he can overwhelm his younger self, a new presence makes itself known as Raditz enters the fray. Due to having an infinite energy engine, the Elder Saiyan has no fear of ki drain forcing him out of a transformation, but this does not mean he can exist permanently in Super Saiyan God, as the form requires a degree of focus due to godly ki still being relatively foreign and something his upgrades were not built to handle. As a result, it takes him a moment to tap into the form, but now that his hair and eyes are crimson, he is ready to put his sons to the test. However, as he flies up to meet the boys, he is shocked to see the confusion in the Elder Trunks' face, and after they exchange a brief salvo of punches and kicks, the future dweller asks what form that is. Furrowing his brow, Raditz states that it's Super Saiyan God, and that he figured it was the form Trunks was referring to yesterday, since he attained it by training with a godly being just like Trunks described. Shaking his head, Trunks replies that his form is very different, though if his dad and counterpart want to see it, he'll happily give them a taste. At once, future Trunks' aura flares a bright white, though beyond that there aren't many cosmetic changes, with the spikes in his hair perhaps being a little more pronounced. Compared to the marked difference Super Saiyan God makes to Raditz's appearance, it is a little underwhelming in present Trunks' eyes, though the boost in power it gives his future self is massive. Having the ability to sense God Ki, Teen Trunks can tell that at this moment future Trunks and his dad are roughly comparable in strength, and with a wash of annoyance he realizes that puts them both well ahead of him. Nonetheless, he is a Saiyan warrior, and so enters his highest state, Super Saiyan 2, before throwing himself at the duo with the intention to fight his hardest. Unfortunately, this fight is a rather short one, as a single gut punch from Ultimate Trunks is enough to send his young counterpart into a wall where he slumps unconscious. For a time, future Trunks and Raditz continue their training, but when it becomes clear that present Trunks isn't just playing possum to lull his opponent into a false sense of security like his dad taught him, the elder duo call their match to a halt and go to check on the boy. As it turns out, Trunks has 10 broken ribs, with the 4 closest to where his elder counterpart hit him being almost completely vaporized. Urgently, Raditz runs from the room, yelling that he'll go to Korin's and get his son a Senzu bean, while future Trunks, being racked with guilt, gently lifts his younger self in his arms and carries him to the Capsule Corp infirmary. Word of Trunks' injury spreads fast throughout the compound, and so before the nurse can even put in the boy's IV drip, Bulma is at his side, furiously asking her future son if Raditz did this during their training. Sheepishly, the long-haired Trunks admits that it was his fault. He misjudged the boy's strength, and he's very sorry, a statement which causes a mix of emotions across Bulma's face, before she sharply tells him to learn from this mistake, her attention turning to present Trunks. Kneeling down to inspect him, she tells the boy that she's here, her voice barely above a whisper, and in spite of himself, future Trunks can't help but smile, being so reminded of the way his own mum would look after him when he got hurt. However, this just reminds him that she's trapped alone in a timeline with Goku and Gohan Black. In an instant, bile rises in his throat as his nostalgia is replaced by terror. A few minutes later, Raditz enters the sick room, a brown drawstring bag in his hands, and as he kneels beside his wife to gently place a bean in present Trunks' mouth, the future version reflects on how he's never seen his past father look so shaken. Even when he lay dying during the Cell Games, there was less fear in his eyes than there is now. It is only when the younger Trunks opens his eyes that his parents' expressions lose the veneer of fear, with Raditz shakily asking how his son feels. Sitting up and touching the site of his newly healed injury, Teen Trunks replies that he feels angry, since he's still too weak to stand alongside his dad and the others as a warrior. Finally feeling like he has something of value to contribute, future Trunks steps forward, telling his teenage counterpart that he's incredibly strong, far stronger than he was at that age. In fact, he's pretty sure this Trunks could take on the androids and maybe even Cell by himself. Leaping to her feet, Bulma exclaims that that's it, her shift in mood so rapid that it startles everyone. Curiously, future Trunks asks what's it, to which his mother replies that Cell came here in a time machine, didn't he? Why not use that time machine to return to the future? Face splitting in a wide grin, future Trunks cheers that she's brilliant. Of course, Cell's time machine would still be in this timeline, meaning he has a way to get home. The pair then hug in delight before Trunks turns to his father and past self, and with a smile for each of them, tells them to follow him. Working together, it only takes about an hour of searching for the heroes to find the time machine, and when present Trunks stumbles upon it, he flares his ki to call the others over to him. Landing beside the young man, future Trunks and Raditz confirm that in spite of its coating of moss and mud, this is indeed Cell's time machine, and after Trunks reverts it to a capsule for ease of transport, the trio return to Capsule Corp. Back at the compound, Bulma sets to work ensuring that everything is still in operable condition, as well as expanding the cockpit to allow for more than one passenger, since with Raditz and both Trunks as being tall and broad men, there is no way that they can all squeeze in at once. As she works, the boys start gathering allies for the trip to the future, and knowing that each warrior they bring means extra time Bulma has to spend upgrading the time machine to fit them, they settle on a 5-man band. Future Trunks, present Trunks, Raditz, Nappa, and Gohan. Tien is also offered a spot by Raditz, but the Triclops politely declines, saying at this point the power gap between himself and the Saiyans would make his contribution negligible, though he does promise to keep watch from the lookout just in case. Nappa is also somewhat hesitant to join the team, stating that with him being at the end of his prime years, he might just slow them down, as he can already feel the effects of his age catching up with him. That's why he didn't fight in the tournament with the others. However, Gohan points out that frontline fighting isn't the only role the bald man can perform. His Yardratian abilities could still prove incredibly useful. This at last gets Nappa to accept, and so when the squad return to Capsule Corp, they are pleased to see that the time machine is ready. Hastily, the defenders of Earth prepare to pile in and take off to the future, but putting a hand out to stop them, Future Trunks says they shouldn't leave from here, since if he was Goku or Gohan Black, he'd have laid a trap in the future ruins of Capsule Corp, just in case he managed to find a way to return to his timeline. Shrugging, Nappa says they could go to the wasteland where they first met Trunks if the future dweller prefers. With a shake of his shaggy head, Future Trunks replies that he has a better idea, asking if Gohan could take them all to the sacred world of the Kais. Nonplussed, Gohan agrees, kai-kaiing them all over, much to the consternation of Kibito, who says that Gohan's making a bad habit of coming and going as he pleases, reminding the young guardian that this is a sacred space, not a clubhouse. Chuckling self-consciously, Gohan says they'll just be going, having Future Trunks pop the time machine's capsule and climb inside. Briefly, Kibito looks relieved, thinking Gohan's just fulfilling his request from earlier, but this is promptly replaced by shock when the others also climb into the time machine and begin powering it up. Waving his arms frantically, the Pink Kai pleads with them not to do this, since this will constitute several additional violations of cosmic law, all taking place in the sacred world of the Kais, a fact Lord Zeno will surely notice. However, with an apologetic look, Gohan says he's afraid they're gonna have to bend the rules a little this time and hope for the best, as he too takes his place in the time machine. The sight of an appointed deity flagrantly defying the decree of the Omni King is too much for Kibito, and as his eyes roll back in his head, he faints, which is probably for the best, as it means he does not technically witness the crime of time travel occur. A few minutes later, the time machine exits the time stream on a very similar sacred world of the Kais, though instead of being greeted by Kibito, the heroes are met by a wrinkly old Kai with a mustache, who they all surmise is the Elder Kai. Irritably, Elder Kai demands to know what's going on here, but with a low bow, Future Trunks explains that he has gathered warriors from the past to help him take out a duo of villains plaguing the universe. In contrast to Kibito's aghast reaction, Elder Kai waves this off, just telling Trunks not to go shouting about such things, clearly not caring so long as he doesn't have to deal with the threat himself. He then begins to toddle away but is stopped by Future Trunks, who says they urgently need the Kai's help. That's why they appeared here rather than on Earth. Crabbily, Elder Kai huffs the young hybrid only ever visits when he wants something, but all the same he asks what Trunks needs, with the future warrior explaining that he wants the old Kai to perform the same ritual he did on him on his past self. This shocks everyone, with Teen Trunks asking why him when he's the weakest of the team. But with a smile, Future Trunks explains that this ritual unlocks a warrior's potential, and the boy has some incredible untapped power. He just knows it. Present Trunks remains skeptical, suggesting it might work better on someone like Gohan, but the Guardian replies that his cousin is selling himself short, a claim Future Trunks agrees with, telling his counterpart that the ritual took him from weaker than Cell to stronger than Boo. So imagine what it'll do to a younger, stronger version of him who has seemingly greater potential. It might just be the key to saving this timeline. At these words, Raditz, Nappa, and Gohan all add their support to Future Trunks' claim, expressing the faith they have in the teenage Trunks. And drawing confidence from this, the young hybrid nods, telling the Elder Kai to give him his instructions and he'll do whatever it takes to complete the ritual. This bravado is somewhat curtailed, however, when the wrinkly old deity explains that Trunks' job will be to sit still and not be a nuisance. Hardly the great act of heroism the boy expected to be required to come into his true power. And so the ritual begins, with Elder Kai frolicking and dancing around Trunks while the boy sits perfectly still on the ground. By the Elder Kai's estimates, it will take about 5 hours to complete this part of the ritual, and then another 20 or so of Trunks holding that position for his full power to be drawn out, a claim which makes the teen groan, though his elder self encourages him to look on the bright side. By this time tomorrow he'll likely be even stronger than him. While the rest of the Saiyans wait for Trunks to be done getting his potential unleashed, Gohan asks the Elder Kai where this timeline's version of him and his dad are, wanting to meet them. However, the old Kai explains that they moved on to heaven years ago, since they were only sticking around in the hope Shin would cave and give his life to revive future Gohan. But with the young whippersnapper Kai now being dead, and him as the last Kai being unable to do any such thing even if he wanted to, there was no point for them to stay, and so they left to go be with their friends and family who died in the android attack decades ago. Though disappointed, Gohan says he understands, hoping his future counterpart and father are happy wherever they are. Seeing that there's no reason to stick around then, Future Trunks suggests the rest of the team head down to Earth to confront Goku and Gohan Black. though Nappa replies that he'll hang back since he'd like to learn more about the Kai's ritual, and this way when Teen Trunks is ready, he can use instant transmission to bring them directly to the battlefield. Raditz praises his comrade, calling this good thinking, and so it is that he, Gohan, and future Trunks depart, while the elder Kai, present Trunks, and Nappa remain on the sacred world of the Kais. Touching down in the ruins of West City, Gohan, Raditz, and Trunks stare out at the desolated city, with the father and son duo feeling a particular pang of sorrow. For Raditz, he hadn't realized it up until this moment, but he has lived here longer than anywhere else in his life. It was a safe and stable place where he met his wife, and together they raised their son. To see it turned to ash by the cruel whims of some imposters using his family's faces fills him with rage. Meanwhile, Trunks is forced to grapple with the fact that all he worked for in restoring this place can be swept away in an instant, creating a sense of powerlessness similar to what he imagines his young counterpart felt when they clashed. Nonetheless, neither can afford to wallow, with Trunks instructing his father and cousin to go find Goku and Gohan Black, while he goes to look for his mother, promising to come join them once he's gotten her to safety. Nodding, the Saiyans split up, with Trunks heading for Bulma's place, while the uncle-nephew duo fly towards the massive source of malicious ki that can only be the villains wreaking havoc on a new group of innocents. A little while later, the pair arrive in another ruined city, and to their distinct lack of surprise, Goku Black is maniacally massacring a group of fleeing humans, laughing as he does. At his side floats Gohan Black, along with a green-skinned Kai that neither Saiyan knows, and while the Kai encourages his allies' bloodlust, the imposter Gohan almost seems annoyed, testily asking why waste time on these unnecessarily frivolous kills, when they could simply raise this world now that the Saiyan and the abomination android are gone. Mockingly, the green-skinned Kai asks if his comrade is feeling sympathy for these sinful mortals, but with a scowl, Gohan Black replies that it's not that. He agrees that mortals need to be exterminated so they can start anew, but he doesn't see the point in torturing them before they die. Smirking, Goku Black replies that the point is they must be made to pay penance for their transgressions, though before he can elaborate, Raditz calls out, asking what about Black? What penance should he be made to pay for all the people he and his cohort have killed? Turning as one, Goku Black, Gohan Black, and the green-skinned Kai all look up at the Saiyans, with the former leering that their timing could not be better. After all, what better proof that mortals need punishment than a pair of time-traveling Saiyans? He then looks to Gohan Black, saying that now he will get his righteous vengeance on the real Gohan just like he wanted, a claim the imposter does not refute, but before their mirror duel can begin, the real Gohan leaps into action, transforming into Super Saiyan Rage, and lunging down at Goku Black, screaming that this time he won't let him get away. Remembering the beating he received last time, Goku Black flies backwards, though this is not a retreat, rather a feint that allows Gohan Black to swoop in and attempt to behead the Guardian with a chop. Ducking low, Gohan avoids this and retaliates with a ball of ki thrust into the imposter's chest that sends him crashing into a building, his torso exposed and burned. He then turns his attention to Goku Black, only to receive a knee to the mouth as his father's dark reflection leers at Gohan, his hair now blood red. Goku Black then delivers a scissor kick to the top of the young man's head, sending him careening into the pavement below, but before he can finish the job with a black Kamehameha, Raditz holds a Saturday crush, ordering this facsimile of his brother to eat it and die. However, Goku Black only does one of those things, as while he does allow the ki orb to badly wound him so that he falls from the sky, he still manages to cling onto life. Raditz doesn't care though, readying another ki blast to finish the faker and end his reign of terror, but before he can, he feels himself being pulled into a full Nelson by Gohan of all people. The second glance informs the Saiyan that this is in fact Gohan Black, though it does raise the question of how he is back in fighting shape so soon, though this is answered an instant later as the Green Kai appears beside Goku Black and lays a hand upon him, healing him back to full strength. Swaggering back to his feet, Goku Black maniacally thanks Raditz for the free power increase, promising that he will return the favor. That is if he can survive his next attack. Gohan Black then kicks Raditz down to the ground, where the Kai is waiting to plant a boot on his head, holding him in place as Goku Black charges another black Kamehameha at point-blank range. For all the courage he's gained through the love of family and friends, Raditz still has his strong self-preservation instinct, and this pushes him to escape, quite literally as he pushes off the ground and to his great shock finds that the Kai is far weaker than the others, being easily knocked away by the motion. Recognizing the importance of this revelation, Raditz yells out to Gohan, informing him of the villain's weakest link, for which the young hybrid thanks his uncle as he bursts back onto the scene going straight for the Kai with the intent to kill. This charge is intercepted by his doppelganger, who instead redirects them into the side of a skyscraper, attempting to stab Gohan in the heart with one of the pieces of broken window. Thinking fast, Gohan darts out an arm to shield himself, though has to bite down to keep from screaming as his left arm is impaled by the foot-long glass shard. Coldly, Gohan Black orders the young man to stop struggling, and as his malefic aura burns with scorn, real Gohan at last knows who is wearing his face, telling him as much and urging Kibito to give up the ghost. Letting out a noise that could be anything from amusement to derision, Gohan Black calls this well-deduced, confirming that he is in fact Kibito, though this just raises more questions, such as how he was able to come into possession of Gohan's body, and why he'd do such a thing. Flaring his aura to blow Gohan back, the former Kai replies that he doesn't need to explain himself to the mortal, though it is a new voice who replies, saying that perhaps not, but he does have to answer for his crimes. Heads whipping round, heroes and villains alike witness as future Trunks bursts onto the scene, his Keyblade alight as he drives into Gohan Black's chest, screaming this is for the world he and his allies turned into a living hell. Drawing heart from this, Raditz makes a beeline for the green Kai to prevent him from healing his comrade, yelling at his son to kill the fake Gohan while he has the chance. However, Trunks sadly never gets that opportunity, as with speed beyond sight, Goku Black joins the group in the sky, peppering Trunks with key bolts and forcing him to relinquish his hold on his sword. Gohan immediately rushes in to assist his cousin, and with Gohan Black still badly injured, this leaves the healer exposed. Seizing the opportunity, Raditz raises a shining Friday in his fist, which he brings down on the Kai's head, destroying it instantly and dealing a seemingly decisive blow to the villains. Cackling proudly, Raditz gloats the fake Saiyans made a critical error leaving the most crucial man unattended, but all mockery is promptly cut off as a pair of green hands snap the long-haired Saiyan's neck. As Raditz's body falls to the ground, the uninjured form of the green Kai smirks down at him, chuckling the Saiyan was a fool to test God's immortality. From above, Trunks sees red, remembering how his timeline's version of Raditz died to buy him a chance to live. He won't lose his father again. He can't. Not in the same way. Jumping right into Ultimate, he grabs hold of his broken sword hilt, igniting it with jagged ki as he prepares to attack the green-skinned bastard, over and over again, until there aren't even atoms of him to put back together. In that moment, he doesn't care about Goku and Gohan Black. They can fill him full of holes, rip him limb from limb, kill him 1,000 awful ways, it doesn't matter, so long as the Kai dies first. However, before he can enact his vengeance, a pair of arms wrap around him, Gohan's arms, and assuming it's black, Trunks rams the pommel of his sword into Gohan's nose, only for his cousin to cry out in pain. Mind still addled by rage, Trunks snarls at Gohan to let him go, but firmly and with a far more level head, Gohan tells him that with their enemy having an immortal healer who can bestow infinite Zenkai boosts on their enemy, attacking them only helps them. Instead, they should get Raditz to safety, since given a person can survive up to 4 minutes after having their neck broken, there's a chance he's not dead yet, and with a Senzu bean they can save him. These are just the words Trunks needs to hear, and so acquiescing to Gohan's plan, he instead dives for Raditz's prone form, while the Guardian fires off a solar flare to cover their escape. A few minutes later, the two half-Saiyans land in the ruins of a house, clearing away some of the rubble so Trunks can lay Raditz on the table, while Gohan fishes for the pouch of Senzu beans his uncle had on him. Thankfully, there are more beans inside, and when one is placed gently into the Saiyan's mouth, his neck reknits itself, and his eyes flutter open. Paying no heed to the fact that his neck was very recently broken, the two younger men throw their arms around Raditz, expressing their relief that he's okay. Grinning, Raditz scolds them for doubting him, declaring it'll take more than a green bean with a bad mohawk to take him out, before asking what happened after he went down. It is with a heavy heart that Gohan recounts their choice to retreat, but Raditz seems untroubled, calling this wise, since with the Zenkai's Kibito and his ally received, they'll be even stronger now, not to mention they were at a numbers disadvantage. Better to bide their time until Nappa and present Trunks arrive. Thankfully, Trunks knows just the place to lie low, leading his father and cousin to future Bulma's safe house, where they are happy to find her alive and well. This results in a touching moment between future Bulma and Raditz, as the future dweller greets her husband's counterpart, clearly delighted to see some version of him after over a decade without him. In turn, Raditz gives her a smile, saying that he knows if her Raditz was here, he'd want to thank her for doing such a wonderful job raising their son without him, and express his abiding love for both of them. The remainder of the evening is spent resting at Bulma's place, and for the most part it is a pleasant experience of swapping stories and comparing how different their worlds have become in the days since the Cell games. The only awkward moment is during the recounting of that day's battle, when Bulma asks Gohan how he knows so much about broken necks. Despite it being an innocuous question, the young Guardian quickly grows flustered, awkwardly mumbling something that sounds like a teacher once told him that. In the morning, the heroes of the future are joined by Nappa and Teen Trunks, the latter of whom has undergone a drastic power increase, as well as a sudden sharpening of his features that gives him a mature look more akin to his future counterpart. Now with the full team assembled, the 5 Saiyans depart for where they sense Goku Black, Gohan Black, and their mysterious Kai ally, who upon seeing him, Teen Trunks reveals is none other than Zamasu, the Kai he and Uncle Kakarot visited the other day. To their surprise, the lair of these monsters is in fact a pleasant countryside cabin, where the trio of villains sit sipping tea. Nonetheless, the younger Trunks has no qualms about putting a key bolt through their roof, as he orders the bad guys to come up here so he can knock them back down. Scowling, Goku Black quips that he could swear there are more vermin here than yesterday, while Zamasu nods his agreement, saying that 2 of them even look the same to him. Truthfully, all these mortals look alike to him, but these 2 especially so. Finishing his own tea, Gohan Black states that is because they are. The younger one is the Trunks from his and Goku Black's timeline, while the elder one is from here. He then meets future Trunks' eye, and in a firm voice states that he shouldn't have come back here, since he offered the mortal a chance to live, which is a courtesy the time traveler did not extend to this reality's version of him. Future Trunks has no idea what the former Kai is talking about, though he isn't given much time to find out, as present Trunks has grown sick of this idle chit-chat, and so charges forth, eager to test his new power. Powering up into Super Saiyan God, Goku Black meets the youth in midair, though to his surprise, he is not able to knock this brat away as easily as he had thought. In fact, Trunks' power seems superior to the Pseudo Saiyans. With a hint of concern in his supercilious voice, Goku Black calls for Gohan Black to join him, but this idea is promptly stopped in its tracks, as the real Gohan along with future Trunks appear in front of him, firing tandem blasts that send him soaring back into the nearby woods. Raditz then joins his teenage son, also in his own god form, and together they force Goku Black to retreat back towards the city, while Nappa focuses on fighting Zamasu, since even if he cannot kill him, he can stop him from assisting his allies. The hero's plan is a simple one: divide and conquer, having realized that neither Goku nor Gohan Black have bothered to learn how to fight defensively in their stolen bodies, since with Zamasu to heal them, they believe injuries are to their benefit. This is their Achilles heel, and if the Saiyans can exploit this, they should be able to take these monsters down. In the city, Raditz and Trunks continue their onslaught against Goku Black, whose considerable strength is no match for a Trunks at his full potential and a Raditz with the power of a god. Recognizing this, the imposter resorts to trickery and dirty moves, trying to use Raditz's paternal feelings against him by targeting Trunks in the hope the elder Saiyan will make a mistake while trying to protect his offspring. However, there are 2 fatal flaws in Goku Black's plan. Firstly, as it stands, Trunks is stronger than his father, and Raditz knows this, having faith in his son to look after himself. And secondly, the Faker has forgotten who he is fighting: Raditz, the master of sneaky tactics. Against such a seasoned coward, there is nothing this wannabe can pull that Raditz hasn't already seen and likely perfected, and so any advantage Goku Black may have is fleeting at best, with the father-son duo quickly regaining their upper hand and driving said hand into their enemy's face over and over again. Meanwhile, in the forest, Gohan Black is facing similar issues, except he is facing down a Super Saiyan Rage Gohan and Ultimate Future Trunks while still in his base form. As one would expect, this goes badly for the being formerly known as Kibito, with him being beaten into a bloody pulp within a matter of minutes. Slumping against a tree, Gohan Black awaits his death, and Trunks is more than happy to provide, summoning a sword of ki and laying it against his throat. Through bloodied teeth, Gohan Black asks if Trunks feels proud murdering 2 versions of him, but with a growl, the future dweller says he doesn't know what the former Kai is talking about. Scowling, Gohan Black tells him not to play innocent, since he knows how the half-Saiyan was happy to let him and Lord Shin die so that he could kill Boo, but Trunks calls this a bald-faced lie, saying Kibito made the choice to sacrifice himself so that both him and Shin could live. They were comrades, and more than that, they were friends. The ferocity with which Trunks says this, clearly emanating grief for his fallen friend, gives Gohan Black pause, and in that moment, the Saiyans can see a war going on behind his eyes. Gohan then asks a question of his own, something about his doppelganger's story not quite sitting right with him. He said that he was from his timeline, so how does he know so much about future Kibito's death? A little of his old surety returning, Gohan Black answers that Zamasu witnessed it and relayed the details when he offered him a chance to join his mission. Coldly, Trunks asks if the imposter ever considered that the Green Kai might have been lying to manipulate him, but Gohan Black protests that it's easy to suggest such things without proof. Placidly, Gohan asks what proof Zamasu offered, but Black scowls that the only proof needed was to remind him of the audacity of Gohan and his father, preying on Lord Shin's good nature to try and make him surrender his life for a mortal child, and then having him give up his own without a moment's pause or a word of thanks. Mortals like them are a plague with no respect for the Kais. The universe will be better and safer when they are wiped out and the gods can start again with a clean slate. Anger still bubbling below the surface, Trunks hisses that he will show the former Kai about a lack of respect for the Kais, though instead of beheading him like his tone would suggest, he pulls him to his feet, thrusting him at Gohan and requesting that his cousin Kai them to a certain location. Grabbing hold of Black so he doesn't run, Gohan nods, and when Trunks lays a hand upon him, the trio teleport away. A moment later they appear in a wasteland where the weathered wreckage of some sort of metal hut stands as the only notable landmark. Dismissively, Gohan Black asks what the point of this is, but Trunks explains that this was Babidi's ship, and the place where he and Shin fell. He then instructs the former Kai to follow him, leading him and Gohan around the back of the ship, where the damage is far less extensive. Here Gohan Black sees what Trunks is getting at, as burned carefully into the metal are 10 words. Here marks the resting place of Shin and Kibito, heroes. No one says a word for a moment, then in a firm voice, Trunks asks if Black really believes he has no respect for the Kais and would have traded their lives callously. Briefly, the Pseudo-Saiyan attempts to mumble some rationalization of this proving nothing, but it is obvious his resolve is failing, and so looking into eyes that are a mirror of his own, Gohan urges Kibito to think deeply, since if he is from his timeline, he would remember the admiration he and his father have for both him and the Supreme Kai, the years of friendship. How can he ignore all that in favor of a story that now even he can see as false? Letting out a deep sigh, Kibito admits that he can't ignore it any more than he can deny the truth. He was a fool to trust Zamasu and allow his fear and resentment to twist him into this. Slumping against his own memorial, the fallen Kai hangs his head, unable to meet either of the Saiyan's eyes as he humbly apologizes. And while Gohan goes to put a hand on his shoulder, Trunks merely scowls, asking if the Kai really thinks saying he's sorry will make up for all the people he's helped kill. Looking up with a drawn expression, Kibito says he knows it won't, and if Trunks wishes to take his life when this is over, he will not begrudge him. All he wants is to let the pair know how deeply remorseful he is for his actions, and if they would allow it, he would like to try and make up for his mistakes by helping them save this timeline like his better counterpart did. Trunks, not being big on forgiveness, is hesitant, but all the same he follows Gohan's lead as his cousin accepts the former deity's apology, telling him to start by explaining everything. Nodding stoutly, Kibito recounts how he came from the same timeline as Gohan, and that a few days after Goku's sparring match with Zamasu, while Shin and the Saiyan were still on Lord Zeno's world, his fellow apprentice Kai visited him, except now he was not an apprentice, and instead wore the green Patara of the Supreme Kai. During that visit, Zamasu explained how through the use of time rings, as well as the green time rings, he'd been exploring the multiverse and come to a troubling conclusion. Mortals are an existential threat to the Kais. No matter where he went, mortals and their hubris would eventually cause the destruction of the Supreme Kais, and often their attendants, with his future timeline being used as an example. To his great shame, Kibito fell for it hook, line, and sinker, allowing Zamasu to play on his insecurities around Goku replacing him as Lord Shin's successor, or else causing his death at the hands of Lord Zeno, as well as the resentment he had secretly harbored for Gohan for taking his life. Using this, Zamasu convinced him the only way to protect Kai kind was the complete extinction of mortals, not just of this timeline, but every timeline, so they could start over with more pliant mortals who had never threatened them. Letting out a mirthless, shame-filled chuckle, Kibito adds that Zamasu even convinced him that as it stood, the current Supreme Kai were too soft on mortals, and only they had the clarity of vision and resolve needed to bring about salvation. Pure hubristic fantasy, but a tempting one nonetheless, and one he bought into, since it allowed him to see himself as a hero who was saving his people. However, before he could enact his role as divine savior, Kibito needed a living body, as he was dead, and so could not enter the mortal realm. Fortunately, Zamasu had an answer for that too, offering to use a set of ancient wish orbs called the Super Dragon Balls to allow the two of them to steal the bodies of Goku and Gohan, since it would only be fitting for Kibito to take back the life Gohan stole from him, while he would have Goku's body, as the Saiyan had said they were of equal power power during their meeting. In his blinded state, Kibito accepted, and so Zamasu departed to find the balls. Not long after that, Kibito found himself in Gohan's body as promised, and to his greatest surprise, Zamasu was already waiting for him in the body of Son Goku. To this day, Kibito does not know how his fellow Kai acquired a living version of the long-dead warrior's body, but at the time it was of no concern, as they still had another step to their plan: make contact with the Zamasu of this timeline. Future Zamasu was all too eager to join the Zero Mortals plan, and with him on side, they were able to track down this reality's Super Dragon Balls, and with it, grant future Zamasu the immortality needed to ensure that he could heal them without fail should they come up against any resistance. From there, it was only a matter of doing the deed, and though he never enjoyed the same cruelty as the Zamasus, preferring to wipe out worlds as efficiently as possible, he did not stop his colleagues from making sport of the mortals, a mark of cowardice that will be his abiding shame until the day he dies. From above, a cackling voice tells Kibito that he won't have to wait long for that day, and as the trio of warriors look skywards, they see Zamasu and Goku Black floating above them. Though neither are injured, the battered state of their clothes tells the heroes that Raditz, present Trunks, and Nappa gave them hell, a fact which pleases them all. In truth, the only reason Goku Black had managed to escape death was because Zamasu managed to Kai to his location and heal him before teleporting them both away. They had subsequently come here to retrieve Gohan Black, but as they can see, he is gone, with Kibito having taken his place. Furiously, Kibito demands to know if anything Goku Black told him was true, to which Black replies he meant every word about the need for mortals to be exterminated and the other Kais being too soft-hearted to do what had to be done, but beyond that, he simply said what the foolish old Kai needed to hear to make him play his part. This only angers Kibito further, with him asking why go to the effort when he already intended to have future Zamasu as his ally. What was the point of recruiting him? This question makes both Zamasus laugh, as with a supercilious sneer, Black asks if Kibito really wants to know. Very well, he recruited Kibito because he needed a sacrifice. This answer stuns the three Saiyans, and so Black elaborates, saying there's a reason he chose to take Goku's body while giving Kibito Gohan's rather than offering it to his future self, and that's because he knew one day he might have to kill him. From studying them on GodTube, he quickly learned that a Saiyan gains power through their rage, which in mortals is a physiological response, and what enrages a mortal more than the loss of their spawn? Gritting his teeth, Trunks calls this a sick mindset, but with another chuckle, Black retorts that he certainly didn't want to kill Kibito, since it was much more useful to have a good little lapdog, but if he ever needed a little extra power which a Zenkai could not provide, he would have the option to sacrifice Gohan Black and allow Goku's body to go into overdrive at the sight of his dead son. With that in mind, he had no intention of killing another version of himself, not when good old honorable gullible Kibito was around to willingly give up his life for his allies as he did in this timeline. It was a foolproof plan. Snarling, Kibito roars that Black failed to take into account one thing, that as a Saiyan he too would gain power from his rage, and right now he's mad enough to rip the imposter's head off. He then launches upwards, preparing to engage in a brutal brawl with his former ally, only to be stopped as a key bolt from Black pierces his heart, dropping him to the ground. Smirking, Black replies that he actually did factor in the possibility Kibito would turn traitor if something played on his soft heart. That's why he took point in every fight, while encouraging the other two to hang back, so he could gain the power to kill the Universe 7 Kai without issue. Nothing here has deviated from his plan, not for 1 second. Vainly, Kibito attempts to hurl one last curse at Black, but is silenced permanently as Zamasu lazily fires a blast, which takes him out in his weakened state. As the stolen body of Gohan lies limp and dead upon the ground, Black begins to laugh maniacally, while all around him, a sinister smoggy purple aura takes form. This is not the only change, however, as his hair begins to spike up, resembling Goku's in Super Saiyan, though this is no heroic gold, instead being a pale pink, while his eyes are likewise grey rather than cyan. The power of this new state is simply monstrous, making Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Rage seem insignificant by comparison. Having sensed this massive swell in energy, Nappa instant transmissions over along with present Trunks and Raditz, and so it is the 5 Saiyans are together as they witness the birth of Super Saiyan Rose. Cackling, Goku Black declares that this is greater even than he imagined, pure perfection, which will now be used to burn away the mortal scourge. Even if Kibito lost his faith in the end, he was still instrumental in bringing about this, and so he shall be remembered fondly in the new world he will create. However, the same cannot be said for these Saiyan malcontents, who must now be completely purged. Taking their fighting stances, the Saiyans ready themselves for what they now know will be the final battle between gods and mortals. Powering up into their highest states, Gohan, Raditz, Nappa, and the Trunkses each leap at Black and Zamasu, though one by one they are knocked back by the awesome might of Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. Teen Trunks, as arguably the strongest of them at this moment, comes the closest, landing a hit on the Imposter Saiyan's arm before being sent flying. Next they try attacking as a team, but this just makes them a bigger target, meaning Black can launch a ki blast from a distance which sends them crashing into the dirt before they can even get close to him. It truly does seem as though this battle is a hopeless endeavor, but even still the heroes do not give up hope, readying blasts of their own now since brute force clearly cannot solve this problem. Alas, even here Goku Black outclasses them, his new Super Black Kamehameha consuming their beams and slamming into the mortals, sending them flying in different directions. With a heavy thud, Gohan lands on his side, and as he opens his eyes, he finds himself face to face with his own dead body, or rather the body of Gohan Black. Perhaps it is the sight of his own corpse, perhaps it is the knowledge that Kibito was just on the verge of redemption, or perhaps it is the fact that these two Zamasus so cruelly robbed a man he has long considered a friend of that chance. But for whatever reason, as Gohan rises to his feet, he feels a new depth of fury well up inside himself. From their own prone positions, the remaining Saiyans witness this change in Gohan as the blue shell of calm God Ki that usually makes up the center of his Super Saiyan Rage aura begins to darken, taking on the same purplish hue as Black's aura, almost like Gohan's is becoming polluted, while his hair also darkens slightly, receiving a faint pink veneer over the gold. This change comes with a sizable power increase, and as Gohan fires off his next Kamehameha, it meets Black's, creating a stalemate before they both dissipate. Realizing this might be just the boost they need, the two Trunkses power up once more into Ultimate, and as one begin charging up double Sundays. Seeing this, Gohan does the same, and as the three half Saiyans converge upon each other, they launch a mighty combo attack, the Cousins Ultimate Rage Sextuple Sunday. This fearsome three-man beam greatly surpasses anything Black can hurl back at them, and with a pained roar, the Pseudo Saiyan is consumed by the blast. In the aftermath, no one can feel his energy or see any remnant of his body, a fact which causes the Saiyans to rejoice, even though there is still the matter of Zamasu to attend to. Thankfully, Nappa has a solution for this, cracking his knuckles and telling his allies to bring the Kai to him. Frantically, Zamasu attempts to Kai away, but Raditz is faster, appearing in front of him and delivering a chop to his trachea which shatters his neck and paralyzes him while also granting a bit of payback for last night. As the green-skinned Kai slumps forward, Raditz and Future Trunks each take hold under an arm and begin floating over to the burly bruiser. By now Zamasu's immortality has healed his injury enough for him to vigorously resist his captors, but it is a vain effort as Nappa stretches out a hand and presses his palm to Zamasu's chest. Hysteria in his voice, Zamasu demands to know what the mortal swine's doing to him, but with a sinister smile, the bald Saiyan responds that he's seeing how literally one should take the name of Yadrat's secret technique, forced spirit fission. For one horrible moment, understanding blossoms on Zamasu's face. Then with a terrified scream, his soul is ripped from his body, leaving it alive but lifeless, while his soul is met with an even crueler fate. As he is not dead, he will not pass on to the other world. Instead, he will be forced to spend all of eternity invisibly watching the affairs of mortals, but unable to intervene or enact his will. A perfect, permanent penance. And with that resolved, the future timeline is at last able to return to peace. Future Trunks gratefully thanks his friends and family for their help, but the other four all say it was their pleasure, promising to come to his aid whenever he needs it. After a night of celebration, it comes time for the past dwellers to return to their own timeline, a somewhat sober event, as with them having to take the time machine to get home, it means they may never see Future Trunks again. Nonetheless, no one sheds a tear at this parting, with Future Trunks clasping hands with Nappa before giving hugs to his cousin and father. Finally, there is present Trunks, and despite being the same person, neither are quite sure what to say to each other. For a moment, an awkward silence hangs between them, before with a smile, Future Trunks instructs his younger self to use his new power to look after everyone for him, calling the young man Little Bro. Smile returning to his face, Teen Trunks vows that his future counterpart can count on it, with the pair fist bumping before going their separate ways. Once they're back in the present, Gohan wastes no time kai-kaiing over to Beerus's planet, though though the Destroyer is none too happy to have this impudent Saiyan drop in unannounced and without a proper food offering, his temper is somewhat calmed when Gohan explains the severity of the situation. By the end of Gohan's tale, Beerus's expression has gone from angry to shocked, and though he does grumble that he ought to destroy Gohan and his Saiyan buddies for committing the crime of time travel, he at least acknowledges there are more pressing matters, ordering Whis to take them to Universe 10's Sacred World of the Kais. Traveling by light tunnel, Gohan, Beerus, and Whis arrive on the yellow-skied world in a matter of minutes, and to their surprise find no one around. Heading for Goasu's mansion, the trio see that it too is seemingly deserted, though as they move further in, they are met with a disturbing sight, Zamasu gleefully pulling the green Patara from the ears of Goasu's corpse. Seeing this is all the evidence they need, Whis taps his staff on the ground, creating a bubble around himself, Beerus, and Gohan, allowing them to stay in place while the world suddenly starts moving in reverse. When the bubble fades, Gohan stares in awe as an alive and well Goasu stands before him. Curiously, he asks what just happened, but with an apathetic shrug, Beerus replies, "Temporal redo," before snapping at Goasu to tell him where his apprentice is. From behind him, a startled-sounding Zamasu says he's right here, asking why the god was looking for him, or rather he begins to ask, before his sentence and life are cut short by a declaration of Hakai. As Zamasu's tea tray clatters to the floor, being the only sign that he ever existed at all, Goasu blusteringly asks why Beerus just did that. Smiling good-naturedly, Whis explains that they just witnessed Zamasu assassinate him, so they were merely dispensing justice. He then bends down, plucking 2 biscuits from the drop tray, before bidding the Universe 10 Kai good day, and banging his staff on the ground once more. In a flash of light, the Universe 7 trio are gone, returning to their own universe, specifically their universe's Sacred World of the Kais. Here they are greeted by a still flustered Kibito, who meekly asks what he can do for Lord Beerus. Raising a handful of destruction energy, Beerus tells the elderly attendant to say his prayers, but with a yell, Gohan implores Beerus to stop. Looking mildly annoyed, Beerus asks why should he, but stepping between the Kai and the cat, Gohan explains that Kibito was misled by Zamasu, so with him gone there's no chance of him turning evil, and besides he turned good again at the end, so it's clear he's not a bad guy. Weighing this up, Beerus acquiesces, though Gohan suspects this is due to laziness more than compassion, as it means he won't have to go to the effort of Hakaiing 2 people in one day. Having no further business here, Beerus tells Whis to take him home, and with a nod Whis complies, stopping only to congratulate Gohan on his recent power increase, and promise to come visit him and the other Saiyans again soon. When they are alone, Kibito asks the young guardian what that was all about, with Gohan taking a seat on the grass and beginning to explain the story of their trip to the future. When he is done, Kibito looks just as shocked as he did during Gohan's last visit, though now there is shame in his face as well, as he mumbles that he can't believe a version of himself was ever able to be tricked by such a transparent scheme. Giving the Kai a consoling pat on the shoulder, Gohan says that it could happen to anyone, though Kibito insists he should have known better. He then looks the young man in the eye, and with genuine curiosity asks why he stood between him and Lord Beerus after all the horrible things he just witnessed him do. Smiling, Gohan says it was the right thing to do. After all, Kibito gave him a second chance at life when he was a kid, so he was just glad to be able to return the favor, since he never properly thanked him for that sacrifice. Smiling as well, Kibito thanks Gohan for the acknowledgement, and for the first time in their nearly 20-year relationship, calls him friend. Meanwhile, back at Capsule Corp, the rest of the Z-Fighters have thrown a massive barbecue to celebrate their victory and safe return. Raditz and Nappa pile their plates high with the biggest steaks they can get their hands on, while Bulma examines Trunks' new maturer appearance, praising that he looks very handsome, which just goes to show that even though he's got his dad's hair, her genes went out in the looks department. As for the humans, Tien, Chaozu, and Krillin are enjoying a couple of drinks, reminiscing about the old days, and joking that they'd give anything for a King Piccolo level threat again, since it'd be fun to get back into the action. The only one who is absent is Gohan, though this is hardly unexpected as he is Earth's guardian, which is a full-time job and then some. However, to everyone's surprise, they soon feel Gohan's energy approaching, and when they look to the sky, they witness the Guardian's descent, though he is not alone, as a young woman clings to his side. Beaming broadly, Gohan greets his friends and family, while introducing them all to the young woman who they learn is named Janet. Adopting a sly grin, Bulma asks her nephew how exactly he knows Janet, and with a slightly awkward blush, he admits that she's his girlfriend, a claim which makes half the group face fall, while Trunks alone laughs out loud, understanding his cousin's sketchy behavior at last. All the same, Janet is welcomed warmly into the fold, and as the day turns into night, the party rages on, with everyone delighted that at least for now, the world is at peace, and they can share happy days such as this. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.